My ex announced, "Successful people don't waste time breeding. I'd rather die than have your babies." I said, "Okay," then left and built a new life. Yet today she showed up at my door, begged me to leave my wife and son, until she mentioned, "Guys, I'm sitting here feeding my 6-month-old son while my wife grades papers at the kitchen table. And I honestly can't believe the phone call I got this morning. Need some outside perspective because this situation is so surreal. I feel like I'm living in a comedy sketch." Background: I'm 35M, mechanical engineer here in Raleigh. 3 years ago, I was in what I thought was a serious relationship with Whitney, 38F, corporate communications director in Atlanta. We'd been together for 3 years, living together for 1, and I was starting to think about proposing. Here's where it gets complicated. I've always wanted kids, like always. My mom died when I was 8, and my dad raised me as a single parent. Did an incredible job, but I've always dreamed of having that complete family experience. Kids aren't just something I want someday. They're central to how I picture my life. Whitney knew this about me. We'd talked about it early in the relationship, and she'd always been vague. "Maybe someday. We'll see how things go. Let's focus on our careers first." I figured she was just being cautious, wanted to wait until we were more established. By year 2, I was ready to have serious conversations about timeline. I was 32, she was 35. If we were going to do this, we needed to start planning. Every time I brought it up, she'd deflect or change the subject. Finally, in March 3 years ago, I sat her down and said we needed to make some decisions. I told her I wanted to start trying for kids within the next year, and if she wasn't interested in that timeline, I needed to know. Her response? "Tucker, I thought you understood. I don't want children, ever. The idea of being pregnant disgusts me. I'd rather die than have your babies. Not, I'm not ready. Not, I need more time. She'd rather die than have my babies." I was devastated. 3 years together, and she'd been letting me believe we wanted the same things while having zero intention of ever giving me the family I dreamed of. When I asked why she'd never been direct about this, she said she hoped I'd grow out of it, and that successful people focus on their careers, not breeding. Breeding. She called having children breeding. I ended it that night. Packed my stuff, moved out, blocked her on everything. My buddy Blake, contractor, father of 4, said it was the smartest thing I ever did. Don't waste your good years on someone who thinks your dreams are ridiculous. Fast forward 8 months. I'm at a coffee shop near NC State, still feeling pretty broken about the whole situation, when this beautiful woman sits down at the next table with a stack of papers covered in kids' handwriting. Grace, 29, elementary school teacher. We started talking about her students, then about everything else. Within 5 minutes, I knew she was different. She lit up talking about kids, mentioned how much she loved being an aunt, said she couldn't wait to have a family someday. 6 months later, I proposed. We got married a year ago, and our son Luke was born 6 months ago. Luke is perfect. Grace is perfect. I wake up every morning grateful that Whitney showed me who she really was before I wasted any more time trying to change her mind. This morning, my phone rang, number I didn't recognize, but something made me answer. Whitney's voice. "Tucker, please don't hang up." I almost did, but curiosity won. "What do you want, Whitney?" I made a mistake. The biggest mistake of my life. I want to talk. About what? About us. About family. "Tucker, I'm ready now. I want children. I want your children." I literally laughed out loud. "Whitney, I'm married. I have a son." Long pause. Then, "You're married. Already?" 2 years ago. Luke was born in June. She started crying, real sobbing. "Tucker, you don't understand. I've changed. I want what you wanted. I'm ready to be a mother. That's great for you. Find someone else to have kids with. But I want them with you. We had something real. I just needed time to mature." "You had 3 years to mature. You told me you'd rather die than have my children." I was scared. I was focused on my career. I didn't understand what I was giving up. Here's where it gets really wild. She starts telling me she's been thinking about me every day for 3 years, that she's been going to therapy to work through her issues with motherhood, and that she knows we're meant to be together. She wants me to leave Grace and Luke to build the family we should have had. Guys, this woman spent 3 years making me feel like wanting children was some kind of character flaw. Called it breeding. Told me she'd rather die than carry my baby. And now she wants me to abandon my actual family to start over with her. I told her I was hanging up and not to call again. She started begging, saying she'd do anything to prove she'd changed, that she'd move to Raleigh, that she'd give me as many babies as I want. The whole conversation felt gross, like she was offering to buy me back with promises of children, as if my wife and son were just placeholders until she figured out what she wanted. I hung up and immediately told Grace everything. She looked at Luke, looked at me, and started laughing. Honey, she's 3 years too late and about 30 IQ points too short, but here's what's bugging me. Whitney sounded genuinely desperate, not just sad, but panicked, like she'd realized something terrible and was trying to undo it. Part of me wonders if I should feel bad for her. She's 38 now, single, and apparently having some kind of biological clock crisis. But another part of me thinks, tough shit. She made her choice. I made mine. I'm not responsible for her regrets. Grace says Whitney probably saw my social media somehow, mutual friends maybe, and realized what she'd lost. She's not in love with you, Tucker. She's in love with the life you built without her. Blake's take was more blunt. Dude, she had her chance. You dodged a bullet. Don't feel guilty for being happy. So Reddit, am I being cold here? Should I feel sympathy for someone who clearly realizes she made a mistake? Or is this exactly what happens when you tell someone their dreams are worthless? Luke is taking a nap in my arms while I type this, and I honestly can't imagine my life any other way. Grace is an incredible mother. We're talking about having another baby next year, and every day feels like the family life I always wanted. But that phone call really rattled me, not because I want Whitney back, but because it made me realize how completely her life went in the opposite direction of mine. Update 1. Well, Reddit, the plot has thickened considerably, and honestly, it makes Whitney's desperation make a lot more sense. Also makes me feel a lot less guilty about hanging up on her. After I posted last week, Blake, my contractor buddy, said something was bugging him about the whole situation. Dude, people don't just completely change their minds about kids overnight. Something else is going on. So he did some detective work. Blake's got friends all over the Southeast construction industry, including some guys who've done work in Atlanta. He made some calls, asked around, and found out some very interesting information about Whitney's life since our breakup. Here's the timeline Blake managed to piece together about Whitney's life after we split. In spring 2022, Whitney and I broke up after her infamous, "I'd rather die than have your babies" speech. She was ecstatic to be free and told anyone who would listen that she'd dodged a bullet by not getting tied down to a family-obsessed guy. By summer 2022, she was dating her boss, some hotshot VP at her communications firm. Her social media turned into a highlight reel of their so-called power couple life. Expensive dinners, work trips, rapid career moves. Then in fall 2022, the boss got promoted to regional director and assured her she'd be next in line for his old role. Whitney was on top of the world, posting non-stop about choosing career over settling. But things unraveled fast in winter 2022-2023. The boss started dating his 25-year-old assistant, and Whitney was quietly pushed aside. The promotion she was promised never materialized. Her power couple relationship collapsed almost overnight. In spring 2023, now 36, Whitney jumped back into dating, only to discover a harsh reality. Most successful men her age wanted families. The ones who didn't were either much younger or carried serious red flags. By summer 2023, things took a dramatic turn. Whitney began trying to get pregnant, not with a committed partner, just trying. Fertility treatments, sperm donors, consultations, full steam ahead. Blake's Atlanta contact said she talked openly about her timeline and taking control of her biological destiny. In fall 2023, multiple attempts failed. Doctors started gently warning her that 37 meant advanced maternal age, and her egg quality was likely in decline. Then came winter 2023-2024, when she suffered 2 miscarriages in a row. Heartbreaking for anyone, but especially for someone who had suddenly realized she wanted children and felt the clock ticking mercilessly. By spring 2024, she was dating a man purely because he wanted kids immediately. The relationship imploded almost as soon as it began. Turns out desperation isn't attractive, and you can't build a relationship solely around a shared desire to have a baby. In summer 2024, Whitney discovered through mutual friends' social media that I was married, and that we had Luke. According to Blake's source, she had a full meltdown. Spent hours scrolling through photos of my family, crying about what she threw away. By fall 2024, she was back to fertility treatments, but nothing worked. Her doctor told her that pregnancy was still possible, technically, but her chances were dropping sharply with every passing month. Then she called me. Blake laid it all out. Dude, she doesn't want you back. She wants the functional family life you built. She's 38, single, burning through her fertility window, and watching everyone around her have the life she thought she was too good for. This reframes everything about that phone call. She wasn't calling because she suddenly realized she loved me. She was calling because I represent the path she didn't take, and now that path is looking a lot better than where she ended up. Grace's reaction when I told her was perfect. So she spent 3 years trying to have a baby with random men, failing, and now wants to come back to the guy she rejected for wanting babies. That's not character growth, that's panic. The really telling part? When Whitney called me ready to be a mother, what she actually meant was desperate to be a mother before it's too late. Those are very different things. I've been thinking about what my dad went through raising me alone after my mom died. He didn't remarry for 15 years because he wanted to make sure any woman in our lives actually wanted to be there, not just looking for security or convenience. Whitney isn't offering me love or partnership. She's offering to fulfill my desire for children because she's realized that's what might make me happy enough to take her back. It's transactional, not emotional. Meanwhile, Grace and I are planning Luke's first Christmas, talking about names for our second baby, and living the life I always dreamed of with someone who shares my values from the beginning. Whitney made her choice when she called wanting children breeding, and said she'd rather die than have my babies. I made mine when I chose not to waste any more time on someone who fundamentally didn't want the same life I wanted. She's facing the consequences of her choices, and I'm enjoying the benefits of mine. That's not cruel. That's just how life works. Update 2. Reddit. I need to vent because what happened this weekend was completely unhinged, and I'm still processing it. Saturday morning, Grace was giving Luke his breakfast while I was outside changing the oil in our truck. Beautiful December day, neighbors were out doing yard work, very peaceful suburban morning. I'm under the hood when I hear Grace call my name from the front door. Not panicked, but definitely, "You need to come here now" tone. I walk around front and see a silver BMW in our driveway with Georgia plates. Whitney is standing on our porch, holding flowers and what looks like a gift bag, talking to Grace through the screen door. Grace is holding Luke, still in his high chair feeding Bib, and she looks completely calm. Whitney looks desperate, like she hasn't slept in days, clearly spent a lot of money on her outfit and hair, but with this manic energy that was really off-putting. I walk up and Whitney immediately starts talking. "Tucker, I'm so glad you're home. I drove all the way from Atlanta because I needed to see you in person. We need to talk." Grace steps slightly forward and says, "Hi, I'm Grace, Tucker's wife. This must be Whitney. Tucker told me you called a few weeks ago." Whitney looks at Grace like she's seeing her for the first time, really looking at her. Grace is 29, naturally beautiful, wearing jeans and one of my old college sweatshirts, holding our baby who's got breakfast on his face and is giggling at the stranger. "You're younger than I expected," Whitney says. Grace just smiles. "And you're prettier than I expected. Tucker has good taste in women." I'm watching this interaction like a tennis match. Grace is being genuinely nice, which somehow makes Whitney look even more unhinged by comparison. Whitney turns to me. "Tucker, I know this is unexpected, but I drove 4 hours to see you. Can we please talk privately?" "No," I say. "Whatever you want to say, you can say in front of my wife. But this is about us, about our relationship, about our future." Grace laughs, not mean, just genuinely amused. "Honey, Tucker's future is right here. This is our house, our baby, our life. You're welcome to visit, but there is no us anymore." Whitney's facade starts cracking. "You don't understand. Tucker and I have history. We were together for 3 years. We loved each other. I'm sure you did, Grace says. Past tense. But I've been with Tucker for 2 years, married for over a year, and we have a 6-month-old son. Present tense. Then Whitney makes her big mistake. She looks at Luke and says, "He's cute, but Tucker, we could have beautiful children together. I'm ready now. I want to give you the family you always wanted." Grace's voice doesn't change, but her smile gets sharper. Tucker already has the family he always wanted. Luke wasn't plan B, Whitney. He was the plan. I step forward. "Whitney, you need to leave. Now." "But I brought gifts." She holds up the bag. "For the baby. And I wrote you a letter explaining everything. About how I've changed. About how I understand what I lost. I don't want your gifts or your letter. I want you to get in your car and drive back to Atlanta." That's when Whitney completely loses it. Starts crying, saying she's made the biggest mistake of her life, that she's been thinking about me every day, that she knows we're meant to be together. "Tucker, please. I know I hurt you, but I was young and scared. I didn't understand how much I wanted children until I started trying to have them. I've been trying for 2 years, 2 years of doctors and treatments and failure, and all I could think about was how perfect we would have been together." Grace hands Luke to me and steps closer to Whitney. "Honey, let me help you understand something. Tucker didn't want children in the abstract. He wanted children with someone who wanted them too. You told him you'd rather die than have his babies. That's not fear, that's cruelty. I didn't mean it. Yes, you did. And that's okay. People are allowed to not want children. But you don't get to change your mind 3 years later and expect Tucker to put his actual family on hold while you work through your regrets." Whitney looks around our neighborhood. Nice houses, kids' toys in yards, Christmas decorations going up. "This should have been our life." Grace follows her gaze. "No, it shouldn't have. Because you didn't want this life. Tucker found someone who did." Whitney turns back to me, desperate now. "Tucker, I'll move to Raleigh. I'll quit my job. I'll do whatever it takes." "Whitney," I say, and my voice is completely calm. 3 years ago, you told me that successful people focus on careers, not breeding. You said the idea of being pregnant disgusted you. You said you'd rather die than have my babies. I believed you, and I moved on. You should too." She stands there for a minute, crying, holding her stupid flowers and gift bag. Then she looks at Grace. "What do you have that I don't have?" Grace doesn't hesitate. "I wanted this life from the beginning. I wanted Tucker. I wanted marriage. I wanted babies. Not because I panicked about my age, not because I ran out of other options, because I love the life we're building together." Whitney gets in her car and drives away. Later, Grace and I are sitting on our couch with Luke between us, and she says, "Well, that was interesting. I'm sorry she showed up here." "Don't be. I'm actually glad I got to meet her. Now I understand why you're so grateful we found each other." Luke grabs Grace's finger and smiles at her. She smiles back and says, "Your daddy made good choices, baby boy." I've never loved my wife more than in that moment. Final update. Hey Reddit. Final update on the Whitney situation. And honestly, it ends exactly how you'd expect a story about someone who shows up uninvited at someone's house to end. Short version. Had to get a restraining order, but life is absolutely incredible, and I'm grateful every day that I didn't compromise on what I wanted. Long version. After Whitney's surprise house visit in December, things escalated in ways that went from annoying to genuinely concerning. She started showing up places, not threatening, just there, the grocery store where Grace shops, the park where we take Luke for walks, Luke's pediatrician's office. How she figured out where we go is still a mystery, always with some excuse. I was just in the neighborhood. I wanted to apologize properly. I brought something for the baby. Grace handled it with incredible class every time. She'd politely tell Whitney we weren't interested in contact, take photos if Whitney lingered, and document everything. But it was weird and stalkery and making both of us uncomfortable. The breaking point came in February. Whitney sent a package to our house. Not a gift. A folder full of medical records, fertility treatment documentation, and a 20-page handwritten letter about how we were meant to be together and how Luke should have been ours. The letter was intense. Detailed descriptions of her fertility struggles, calculations about her remaining viable years, and a timeline for how we could build the family we always talked about, if I would just give her a chance to prove she'd changed. She'd somehow gotten hold of our wedding photos, probably through social media, and had printed them out with her face photoshopped over Grace's, multiple copies with notes about how this should have been our wedding. Grace read the letter, looked at the photos, and said, "Okay, this woman needs professional help, and we need legal protection." We filed for a restraining order that week. The judge looked at the documentation, the uninvited house visit, the workplace stalking, the medical records package, the photoshopped wedding pictures, and granted it immediately. Whitney was served at her job in Atlanta. According to Blake's Intel network, she had a complete meltdown in her office and had to take a leave of absence. But here's the really important part. Our life has been absolutely amazing. Luke is now 1 year old and walking. He's got Grace's smile and apparently my stubborn personality. Watching Grace be his mother is the most beautiful thing I've ever experienced. She's patient and funny and creative, and Luke adores her. We're expecting baby number 2 in September. Another boy, and we're naming him after my dad. Grace is glowing, Luke is excited to be a big brother, and I wake up every morning grateful for the family we're building. I got promoted to department head at work. Grace got Teacher of the Year at her school. We bought a swing set for the backyard and are planning a trip to the beach this summer. This is the life I always dreamed of. Not because it's perfect, but because it's with someone who shares my vision of what family should be. Blake's latest Whitney update. She moved back in with her parents in rural Georgia, gave up on fertility treatments, and is apparently seeing a therapist about processing life disappointments. I genuinely hope the therapy helps her find peace, but I'm glad it's not my problem anymore.